What makes a horror game truly scary? Is it jump scares, atmosphere, build up? Well, of course, all of these things together and more is what builds up a horror game to be something amazing. But I think if I had to choose one word to answer the question, what makes a horror game truly scary, my answer would be realism. In order for your game to be truly scary, I feel like the player has to be able to connect with your game on a personal level. And what better way to make that happen than to make the environment around them feel real? The game we'll be talking about today, I feel, pulled this off almost perfectly. A Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that was able to capture the real feel of an office, an environment, and realistic means of self-defense in a situation that seems so dire you'd think you'd never be able to make it out to tell the tale. The game we'll be covering today is Freddy's Reanimated, the most realistic FNAF game ever made. Reanimated does not begin like most FNAF games tend to. This game opens to a dark void. We're told that when we die, we will be brought back to this void and that we won't be remembered. However, if we are to be remembered, what is the name we'd like etched into our headstone? And it's here where we can actually choose a name for our character. Afterwards, we're booted into the menu where we can begin the game. As the game begins, we're given a pretty eerie opening cinematic, something pretty uncommon with Five Nights at Freddy's games. It serves to show how we found the job online on a listing site to work as a security guard for 5 days in an abandoned pizzeria. Fantastic! I know myself personally would never accept a job that I know for a fact won't even last a week, but hey, different strokes for different folks, I suppose. With that, we're thrown into the first night where I can talk about hands down one of my favorite parts about this game. Loading into the office, we're hit with something crazy. This game looks real. The office looks like an actual office, with objects placed around that actually look like they should be there, not just a random assortment of items like we typically see in FNAF games. And the sound design is amazing. This game looks real, it sounds real, and I think that's one of the big reasons why people love this game so much. It tries to feel real. Watch for when he's closest. He can be tricked easily. What the fuck does that mean, bro? Holy shit. Oh my god. What the fuck? This looks sick. Of course, like most FNAF games tend to do, we have a phone call on each night to listen to. Instead of the usual where the phone guy at least sounds somewhat like they know what they're doing, the phone guy in Reanimated sounds baked out of his fucking mind.
Speaking of which, the only reason we have a security guard job right now is because the place is being demolished soon. So we don't want any funny business going on at night.
He tells us the basics of our camera. Who cares? That's my job. What he does say that's actually of note is that the building we're in has been abandoned for over a decade. And the only reason we're watching over it now is because the building is about to be demolished. And for some reason, they're concerned about funny business going on because of that. I have no idea what funny business is supposed to mean. My first guess was people breaking in to steal something, but then I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. People could have been stealing from this place for the last 10 plus years. Why would they all of a sudden decide they needed to do this now? Maybe it means graffiti, but the place is being demolished, so who cares? This is such a weird thing to latch onto, but I just feel like it's strange to mention this now. And it does actually bring up a good question. Why would you hire someone to guard a building that won't exist in 5 days? But you never hired a guard for the past 10 years that it was abandoned. It almost makes you wonder if they were expecting something to happen. And maybe that's why they're demolishing it. Before I get into any of the characters, let's talk about the controls of this game and the 3 tools at our disposal. You can only look in 2 directions in this game, at your computer and at your door and window. Something super interesting about this door is that it is actually just a door, which is pretty scary in a game like this where your doors are mainly known as your only means of defense. You can pull the blinds of your window down if you want to, and when I first found that out, I was reasonably concerned as to why. I see this right here, and I know this game's about to be fucked. I know this game is about to be so fucked, dude. It's just a normal fucking door. Bro, these motherfuckers gonna open the shit out of that thing. And we'll get into why in just a minute. But first, I really want to talk about the cameras and why they serve to be one of the most difficult things to deal with in this entire game. Upon looking at the cameras, you'll realize there's no typical camera map and buttons. Instead, there's just arrows at the bottom of the cameras that you can click to move from one camera to the next fairly slowly. This is brilliant in two ways. With the realism approach that this game is taking, looking at the surroundings, we can tell that this game takes place a pretty long time ago in 2013. We can tell this because of the confirm window at the beginning of the game being Windows 7 and the fact that the game tells us. But I just wanted to seem cool by pointing out that I knew what the Windows 7 UI was. Shut up. And yes, 2013 was a long time ago. I know for some of you it may not feel like it, but it was 12 years ago. That's older than some of my audience who, let's be honest, really shouldn't be watching my videos. Mom and dad, monitor your kids, fuckhead. Knowing this and knowing that the game is aiming to be realistic, opting to use a slow, outdated system like this is genius, even if, yes, I think it's AIDS and very annoying. However, once we start talking about the way this game plays, I'll bring up why I think the way these cameras are set up is needed. Anyways, on to the reason why I think this is as annoying as it is. Mainly because it's not consistent in one way that I would expect it to be. There are 9 cameras in total to surf through. When you reach camera 9, if you press the forward arrow again, you will be sent back to camera 1. That makes sense. So, what do you think happens if you press the back arrow while on camera 1? If you said you go back to camera 9, you would be completely wrong because the back arrow doesn't even fucking exist on camera 1. Why is this the case? I have no idea. If it was consistent either way, this wouldn't bother me, but you can cycle in one direction and not the other. And yes, this is noticeable and it does matter. Now we can finally talk about the first threat this game throws at you. I'm sure you could have guessed who it is. That's right, it's Chica. I lied, it's Bonnie. Of course it's Bonnie. Surprisingly, each character in this game attacks you in a unique way. Even though we only have 3 tools, this game somehow manages to make each character vastly different from one another, and I think that's amazing. Bonnie's main goal is to sneak into your office. He will move around the cameras until he gets to your door. And when he gets to your door, be ready. Close that motherfucker! Oh my god. Dude, literally fuck that. Literally fuck that. The moment I saw this, I knew that this was getting a Dxtr White video. And even the people in my comments over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, knew that this game was getting a white video. I actually had another video lined up for this week, and I've chosen to postpone it so that I could talk about this game first, since I love it so much. It's moments like these that FNAF games need. Once Bonnie is at your window, all you have to do is hold down your blinds until you hear his big fat feet galloping away. Not an overtly difficult character to deal with, but really paves the way for what the rest of this game has to offer. Luckily for us, there's a post-night minigame section after each night that we get to talk about. But hold up, Dxtr. Don't you usually hate post-night minigames? Yeah, typically I do. However, this game's post-night minigames don't make me want to shove a porcupine in my asshole backwards. There's no repetitive 8-bit minigames, and again, what we're doing in these minigames still feels realistic. After completing the night, we get another call from the phone guy. He asks us before we head home to go into the storage room and find an old computer, which we can use to upload some old pictures and footage of the building to the cloud. He says he wants to upload some of the interesting stuff to his personal blog, which I'm sure violates some sort of contract, but who am I to care? I break the law all the time. For example, if I was in the UK, I'd probably be arrested on the spot because of the language I choose to use. Anyways, something I think is cool is that we actually get to walk into the back room. We don't just miraculously get placed there. This will become important later, by the way. After walking into the storage room, we can access the computer and start uploading files to the cloud. You'll notice that you can turn to the exit of the room. For now, it's unknown why. After waiting for ages for the upload to finish, we walk out of the storage room and finish out our shift, moving on to night 2. On night 2, we get another call from the phone guy. where we find out that our player is actually trying to do something about the fact that the characters are moving. Apparently, we sent an email to the phone guy explaining that we saw Bonnie moving. We called him the creepy rabbit, which seemed to frustrate the phone guy a little bit, to the point he corrected us on his name.
Oh yeah, and that creepy rabbit you were talking about, he has a name. It's Bonnie.
Sure, this could have just been playful, but I get the funny feeling it's not. The threat introduced on this night is Chica, arguably the least threatening character in this entire game. Chica will randomly wander around your cameras, and she has the chance to charge at your door from 2 of those cameras. Except the difference with Chica approaching your door is that closing the blinds will not stop her. She can attack on cameras 2 and camera 4. You can tell when she's going to attack based on the position she's standing in. On camera 2, she'll be very close to the camera, and in camera 4, she'll be on the very left side of the camera. When she is in either of these 2 positions, you will need to use the flash button on your cameras to flash said camera and scare her away. You may be wondering why there's a flash on these cameras. That's not very realistic, and Dxtr, you told me this whole game was realistic. And now hear me out. Usually I'd agree with you, but I want you to take that concern like a boomerang and launch it as far away from you as possible. Night 2's post-night minigame has us go back to the computer in the storage room to fiddle with the power system. Now this you can complain about because I have no idea what the hell that is supposed to mean. And actually doing the task doesn't really answer anything either. We are shown a series of sliders that we have to quite literally fiddle with. Apparently doing so will reset the power. How do you tell you've put the sliders in the correct spot? Well, you just have to do trial and error. Move one slider a single place, press reset, and if it turns red, change it again. This is very monotonous. If only there was something else on this night to cure my boredom. I don't want to look back. What did I tell you? It's moments like these that really make these FNAF games stand out. To any future FNAF devs, do cool shit. Your game does not have to be stupidly hard to be memorable. It just has to do cool things. And this is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. While looking at the computer, Bonnie will slowly try to creep closer and closer to you. You will have to look back at him lest he shoot his Jeep juice all over your spine. You can actually watch him walk backwards while you look at him, almost like he knows you've noticed he's moved, and is attempting to readjust himself so you go back to looking away. What the fuck? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my fucking god! Did you see that shit? Motherfucker just crip walked back, he moonwalked. It's honestly some of the creepiest shit I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game, and I love it. After completing this minigame and turning towards the door, you'll realize that Bonnie has gone away. Obviously getting bored of you because you're boring. So all we have to do now is walk out of the building. You want me to walk out that motherfucking door? You honestly want me to walk out that fucking door? I mean, I'll do it, but fuck. Oh my fucking god! This game is fucking awesome, by the way. But now it's time to move on to night 3. On night 3, the phone guy says he got another email from us because we told him that Chica was now moving too. He said that in case anyone else starts moving, we should use the flash, because they're probably not used to bright lights. Again, I find this weird coming from him. And come to think of it, why would any of the animatronics from any FNAF game be sensitive to light? They're always on stage where bright lights are beaming on them almost constantly. So I just find it odd how much the phone guy seems to want us to do this. He ends off the call by stating he wanted to tell us a story, but he's out of time. Maybe we'll hear that story another day. For now, let me tell you the story of Sparky the dog. You remember, the hoax character that was said to be in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 way back in the day? Yeah, for some reason he's in this game. And he's the threat introduced on night 3. His mechanics are simple, but really start to show how annoying this camera system is going to become. Occasionally, Sparky will bark. When he does, he will be teleported to a random camera. You will have to find which camera he's on and flash him. Am I a huge fan of this mechanic? No, not at all. And I'm really not a fan when I have to meticulously scrape through each camera one by one. Overall, so far, it's not going to be all too bad. Keep your eyes on Chica, find Sparky every once in a while, and occasionally hold the blinds for Bonnie. Simple sugar, not so bad. But trust me, it'll get bad pretty damn fast. After completing the shift, we get another call from the phone guy. He tells us the cameras have been acting strange, and that we should use the computer in the storage room to reset them. He also curiously mentions that he has remote access to the camera system. So that brings up the question, why the fuck are we even here? If someone else is able to watch the cameras in the safety of their own home, where there aren't a bunch of murder robots trying to butt fuck them, who cares? Let's just finish our shift and head to the storage room.
I'll see you on the flip side.
I'll see you in the grave, asshole. So let me tell you a little something. Oh my fucking God! I love this game. I don't know if that was obvious or not. Entering the storage room is when we enter by far the most difficult minigame section in this entire game. I'm not kidding. We're tasked with literally just holding a button down on the PC. Once it charges all the way, we'll reset a camera and move on to the next one. However, when you let go, the bar will very quickly decrease. That may not sound so bad. It would only be bad if we had a certain purple distraction trying to blow our backs out now, wouldn't it? What the fuck? What? Bro, he's fast as shit. Bonnie is the sole reason why this minigame is so AIDS. Bonnie, for some reason, thought that today was the day he was going to take the Rock Lee ankle weights off and show us his true speed. Bonnie is so astronomically fast during this minigame, it's not even funny. 3, 2, 3. Oh my motherfucking God. Oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. Can I break his knees? You have maybe 2 seconds of time to look at the screen before he kills you, so you have to be fast. And what adds to the difficulty of this night, the hitbox of the progress bar you have to click and hold. Swiping your mouse back and forth to check on Bonnie, then moving back to the computer is insanity. And when you come back, you have to hold the position of your mouse on this tiny little progress bar and continue to hold. But you can only hold for maybe 1 second before you have to turn back around to Bonnie and wait for him to walk all the way back to the door. And keep in mind, the progress bar is decreasing every time you look away, so you're really just fucked. And once you complete a camera is when you notice you have to fix 3 more. And if you ever die to Bonnie, go back into them all over again. Fuck you. This minigame took me around 30 minutes to finally complete. It's unironically the second hardest canonical challenge in this game, and I would love to have to never do it again. But one more interesting detail about this minigame. The final camera you fix briefly shows Foxy in the camera. Oh boy, I hope that's not foreshadowing or something. After completing that hell, we don't have to almost get touched by any robots on our way out and are free to move on to night 4. The phone guy calls us and fucking rambles about some bullshit I don't care about. He says that there was an ancient civilization that archaeologists found, and those researchers were later haunted by handprints of the ancient civilization. Again, I really don't give a fuck. This is purely symbolic for the story of the game, which I'll talk about later. But this was the story he was itching to tell us. I would rather itch my balls than hear him talk about that again. The threat introduced on this night is Foxy. Spoiler alert, the camera was foreshadowing something. Foxy acts exactly how you think Foxy would act. You have to look at him to stall him, and if you don't, he'll run to your office. But as I'm sure you could have guessed, he too doesn't care about your door. Watching him will push him back, so just make sure you're doing that. Something of note is how Foxy breaks the cycle you've been really trying to build up throughout the game, forcing you to develop a new one. Up until this point, watching Chica has probably been your main focus. But now with the character that demands even more attention, I'm sure you could figure out why Foxy will put a big wrench into your plans. Now you have to find a way to constantly watch Foxy and Chica. And lucky us, Foxy is on camera 6, several cameras away from Chica's attack cameras. This game knows what it's doing. Sure, it's frustrating, but it's also genius. In this post-night minigame, we're told we have to fix a ventilation problem. Phone guy tells us it's just turning a few knobs. The ventilation room is in a door right off of the storage room, so the storage room is where we go. I don't see anyone yet. Hi, Bonnie. Were you expecting me to go there? Were you expecting to cut me off? Sorry, asshole. Not gonna happen. Is that not horrifying? Bonnie is standing right next to the computer we've been going to every night. He's starting to remember our patterns, getting to the computer before we can in hopes that he could jump us. But lucky for us, the computer is not where we need to go this time. Entering into the ventilation room, we have 6 knobs in front of us and 2 large vents to our left and right. Pretty reminiscent of the office from Pizzeria Simulator. I wonder if anything is going to come through those vents to try and kill us. Silly little viewer. Of course there is. This minigame's threat is Foxy. Throughout the minigame, Foxy will make quiet sound cues in whichever vent he's about to attack from. When you hear him, all you have to do is turn to stare at him until he goes away. Meanwhile, you have to painfully slowly turn these 6 knobs, which will take a very long time. Because as you get closer to having them all finish, it seems that Foxy will attack you more and more frequently. After completing this task, we can leave with no other funny business taking place. Finally, we're left with one last night. One last thing standing in our way, and this game holds no punches in introducing it. Before you is something long forgotten. Something that was once loved and cherished, but now it lies broken. It is left abandoned. You know what becomes of something long forgotten. It dies a second death. It grows cold. It is unmoving. But what if some things don't wish to be forgotten? Do you know what happens when something refuses to be forgotten? It becomes angry. Anger is eternal. Anger grows, it festers, it burns, it writhes, and then it finally happens. It is given new life. It returns to us. It haunts us. However, it doesn't return as it once was. It returns as something else, something unrecognizable. Through its anger, it is reanimated. And with that, we're given one final message. The flash slows him down. Godspeed. When I first read that message, it gave me chills for some reason. It's like just by reading that, I knew what I was about to experience. Absolute agony. We get another call from the phone guy. He explains his reasoning for why he thinks the robots are alive. He thinks they're angry that they've been forgotten about and left abandoned for years, and he couldn't be more right. Night 5 introduces Freddy. Holy fucking shit, Freddy. Freddy is by far the most dangerous character in this entire game. When Freddy moves forward, he will never move backwards. And once he gets to your office, it's over for you. Yo, get the fuck away from that fucking door! You get the fuck away from that door! What? Oh, fuck, dude. Freddy is a dick. Raps. How do you stall Freddy? By using the flash, of course. When you flash Freddy, he will cover his eyes. Something interesting to note is that Freddy is the only character to be animated on the cameras. Such a small detail, but a detail I think is really cool. If you really want to make sure Freddy doesn't move, you'll have to time his intervals since they don't vary. And make sure you're onto his camera and flash him at quite literally every single opportunity. You don't have much time to waste as Freddy is fast. Really fucking fast. I don't quite have the vocabulary necessary to describe how intense this night really is. And if you get bad Sparky spawns like I often did, you could easily spend hours on this night. I was lucky enough to only have it take me a single hour. But if you manage to control your nerves long enough to complete this night, we will have one final minigame to talk about. After completion, we get one final call from the phone guy. He very ominously tells us to enter the dining room. He says he wants to show us something. Upon entering the dining room, we're greeted by all 5 animatronics staring back at us. The camera to the dining room flashes, and we hear the phone guy, named Ralph, explain that the reason it flashes is so that you can take a screenshot of the camera. Ow! Oh! Oh! Fuck! See? That's why I told you to make it a boomerang. Ralph then used that image to post on his blog. He's been using these camera images for his blog all week, and we were the bait. One last goodbye is said, and the restaurant goes quiet. The gameplay of Freddy's Reanimated is incredible. There's no doubting that. This game, of course, has a custom night with 3 additional unlockable characters, the first of which being Bon Bon, who's actually a reference to the game Freddy's Web Adventure. Pretty cool. Occasionally, he will appear on your cameras. If you don't click him fast enough, he will disable all of them for the remainder of the night. The next character you can unlock is called the Hawk. He acts as a Phantom Chica-like character. He will periodically appear on the cameras, blocking the view, and if you don't turn away from him, he will kill you. Pretty simple, but in a game where the cameras are super important, this guy can be a big pain in the ass. Finally, the last character you can unlock is Sienna, by far the most cancerous of the Custom Night 3. She will occasionally block the clock next to your door, which somehow prevents time from passing. This is a Custom Night character that can drop the realism at this point. All you have to do is click her nose and she will go away and the time will continue to pass. Altogether, completing a custom night with these 3 additional characters is a torture I would never want to put myself through. But shout out to Dark Ryun who was able to pull it off, and whose footage you're seeing right now. I should mention that the custom night does have a secret ending, but I'll bring it up when I talk about the story of this game, which, you know, we'll do right now. The story of Freddy's Reanimated is honestly one of the most surprisingly thoughtful pieces of writing I've ever seen in a FNAF fan game. It's not about murder or purple men or endless timelines that make my brain feel like fucking mashed potatoes. It's about being forgotten, and about what happens when something that used to bring people joy is left to rot and fade away. The entire game is built on this theme: nostalgia, decay, and the quiet horror of being erased from memory. Freddy's Reanimated takes place inside Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, a restaurant that's already dead by the time we get there. It used to be loved. Kids laughed, parents smiled, the animatronics performed, and everything was fine, until it wasn't. Over time, the crowd stopped coming, the lights dimmed, the laughter stopped. The building was abandoned and left to gather dust for over a decade. No massacres, no missing children, just nothing. The kind of death most things really suffer. When the game starts, we're told the place is finally being demolished, and Ralph, the manager, hires a night guard to keep an eye on the place for the last few days. That's us. But before us, there was another guard, Mike Schmidt. Yeah, that Mike Schmidt. He worked one night, just one, and didn't make it out. In the demo of this game, we actually see what happened. Mike survives until 6 a.m. The power cuts, and Freddy himself storms into the office and literally bites his head off. No mystery, no cover-up. It's brutal, it's direct, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. When Ralph brings us in months later, he acts like none of that ever happened. He's casual, a little too calm, and gives us these half-baked instructions that sound like he's either high out of his mind or hiding something. He keeps asking us to do these little tasks: fix the power, upload old files, check the cameras, all while brushing off the fact that the animatronics are moving. Every night, our character emails Ralph describing what they saw, and every night Ralph dances around the truth. He never says, "You're wrong," but he never says, "You're right" either. It's like he knows what's going on, but refuses to say it out loud. Then, finally, on the last night, Ralph tells us a story. The story he's been dying to share. He says that back in the 1940s, archaeologists discovered a cave covered in human handprints. The people who found it were haunted by those same handprints for the rest of their lives. Like the dead were reaching out just to remind them they were still there. And Ralph thinks the same thing is happening to Freddy's. He believes the animatronics are moving because they refuse to be forgotten. That after sitting abandoned for over a decade, their anger, this pure, desperate rage, literally reanimated them. Not out of vengeance, not because of possession, but because of memory. Because they were once loved and then left behind. It's such a fascinating take. The idea that these animatronics aren't evil, they're afraid. Afraid of fading away. It's one of the first FNAF fan games I've seen that makes you feel sorry for the monsters chasing you. They're not killing you because they want to, they're killing you because they don't want to disappear. After you survive the final night, Ralph asks you to head into the dining room. He says he wants to show you something. When you enter, all 5 animatronics are standing there, waiting for you. It's one of the eeriest visuals in the entire game. Completely still, completely silent. Ralph activates the camera flash, and the screen freezes in a burst of light. Then he says,
I finally figured out what the flash button does. It lights up the room so that you can take a screenshot of the camera you're looking at. I finally have more recent images for my blog.
And that's when it hits you. The whole time, we weren't protecting the building, we were the bait. Ralph was using us to get the footage and screenshots he wanted for his personal blog, to turn the remains of this haunted restaurant into online content, the same way we, as players, chase nostalgia. Ralph chases it too. He's obsessed with documenting something that's supposed to be gone. After everything, the building is demolished. Ralph's posts about it online, sparking renewed interest in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. People remember it again. The animatronics, those same restless spirits that didn't want to be forgotten, finally get what they wanted. They are remembered. And then they rest. The player gets their paycheck. The story ends not with a scream, but with silence. It's such a powerful way to close things out. Freddy's Reanimated isn't about surviving animatronics. It's about the fear of being erased. It's about what happens when the world moves on and leaves you behind. Even the custom night ending reflects that idea. Mike Schmidt's death is written off as a bear attack. Just a tiny headline, nothing more. And Freddy Fazbear himself, lying in the rubble, surrounded by everything that used to be alive, now just forgotten scraps of metal. For a game that's meant to be realistic, it's ironic that the story is one of the most human I've ever seen in this genre. Freddy's Reanimated isn't just the most realistic FNAF game ever made, it's one of the most real stories the community has ever told. Would you like to hear one last interesting piece of information I have to share? There is a secret in this game up until this point. As far as I'm aware, nobody has ever found it, and I can guarantee you've never seen it before. A secret so rare that the chances of finding it exceed luck that no human has ever had. And I want to thank City, the author of the FNAF fan game wiki, for providing me with this information and allowing me to share it with you guys. We know that Michael got bitten and killed by Freddy, but did you know you can actually see Michael's corpse inside of the game? You just have to be incredibly lucky. To start, you must have already beaten the main game. No custom night completion is necessary. Then you have to restart the game from night 1. Before completing night 3, you will have to die at least 5 times. Then, upon beating night 3, when entering the hallway, there's a 1 in 10,000 chance to see the corpse. Slight gore warning, by the way. This is probably the most realistic looking gore I've ever seen in a FNAF game. If you can pull all of that off and get more lucky than any human on Earth, this is what you will see in the hallway. Truly some of the scariest shit I've ever seen. But there you have it. That's everything as far as I'm aware that Freddy's Reanimated has to offer. Overall, this game is one of the coolest experiences I've ever had since starting this channel. I don't think this game is nearly my favorite. I think I like Junior's and Banshee just a little bit more, but it's definitely close. The atmosphere, the sound design, the game design are all borderline perfect works of art. The Five Nights at Freddy's formula. Arguably what defines a FNAF game in the genre of a FNAF game. You're stuck in a small space, you can't move, and several threats are trying to eliminate you as you use a small amount of tools to defend yourself for an arbitrary amount of time. This, in a nutshell, is Five Nights at Freddy's as a genre. However, there are some Five Nights at Freddy's fan games that don't follow this formula, and if it wasn't for the use of the characters from the original game, you would have no idea that they were even FNAF games to begin with. And maybe you can think of a few games like this. The game I'll be covering today is another one of those games. A game so unique, so good, that if it didn't use official FNAF characters, it could easily be its own fantastic survival horror experience. So sit back, strap in, and join me today as we cover Fredbear and Friends Reboot. You can honestly think about Fredbear and Friends Reboot as more of an Outlast, Resident Evil, or Poppy Playtime style game, purely in terms of how it plays. It's a story-based, free-roam survival horror game, except it uses characters and settings from the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, and it's honestly super cool. We play as a guy named Thomas. When this game takes place, the Fredbear and Friends restaurant had been closed for over 26 years. And together with our friends Chris, Ashley, and Richard, they all decided it'd be a great idea to do some urban exploring in the now abandoned building, not knowing that they were about to walk into a sick and sadistic death trap, the likes of which they'd never experienced before. We drive to the restaurant where all of our friends are waiting and head inside to find them. We all talk about what the plan is, and it seems like they don't even fucking have one. So like, why are we even here? No matter. We decide to all split up like Scooby and the gang to explore faster, something I would never agree to do because this building is so dark I can barely see 10 feet in front of me. So, to solve the darkness problem, Richard finds the power room as we enter the office of the building. Successfully turning the power on, I ask the question, is it even possible for a building 26 years abandoned to even be able to have power? That's a genuine question, by the way. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but like, who's paying that bill? The city? I have no idea. After having our fun in the office, we meet back up with our bald friend Chris. I know being bald isn't a crucial plot point, but a plot point I found relevant to point out. Like, imagine being bald. Couldn't be me. I have luscious locks. Bald bitch, loser bitch, boy, loser bitch. Chris tells us he wants to continue exploring to find out more about this place, which I call bullshit on because this bald loser is sitting down and is actually not exploring a damn thing. Heading back to the office, we find 2 documents for Chris since he's too lazy to go look for himself. One of the documents mentions the animatronics acting up, and the other talks about an armed man in a purple suit. I wonder who that could possibly be. We go back to where Chris was, only to find him missing. After exploring around, we realize we can't find Richard or Ashley either. We hear a voice in the distance yelling to get away, and later hear what sounds like Richard getting attacked.
What the fuck?
We decide to say fuck our friends and run to the exit, only to find that the door is somehow locked. We decide we need to go hide in the office since there's a door we can close to keep ourselves safe. As we run down the hallway, we run into Chris. Relieved, we go to greet him, only to watch him get snatched from something hiding in the vent on the ceiling, pulling him up into the ceiling and tearing him apart. Yeah, not this way though, not fucking that way, no we ain't. We obviously turn around and go to the other entrance of the office since I'm not about to get ganked like Chris just did. As we go to the other hallway, we can hear loud metallic footsteps following behind us. We quickly hide under the desk and hope that whatever is following us is retarded. We watch as a crooked spring Bonnie limps through the office, unaware of our location. We come back up only to hear a ring of the phone on the desk. We answer the phone to be greeted by some douchebag using voice mod like those guys that go on Valorant to flirt with any female over the age of 10.
If you want to survive, listen very closely.
He tells us how to survive each of the 8 animatronics. The fucking 8 goddamn cock-sucking animatronics. My god, that is a lot. I'm not going to explain every single animatronic at the same time right now because that would be boring as fuck. And trust me, this phone call was also boring as fuck. The big thing that we're told is that Fredbear is scary. and he's the reason why one of the doors to the office is broken. So fantastic! We have a door that doesn't work. What exactly are we supposed to do? I have no idea. I have no direction whatsoever aside from let's go see if I can break the exit door down. But before we can try anything, we're forced to listen to a cutscene while there are 8 hungry robots whose mouths begin to water whenever they smell my gooch. During this cutscene, we're put into the perspective of a mechanic named Simon. We're told that we have to go into the Fredbear's building to fix some of the robots because the customers reported them to be acting aggressive. So we can gauge that this cutscene obviously takes place before the shutdown. After this cutscene, we're actually put into the perspective of this mechanic as we head inside the building to solve the problem at 5 in the morning because as an engineer, we're on call all the time, yet still get paid like dog shit and are still expected to just wake up and travel at any time, even for the smallest of reasons that could 100% wait until my fucking shift starts. But alright, let's go I guess. As we enter the building, we notice the animatronics are on for some reason, and they shouldn't be at night. We figure somebody just forgot to shut them off, so we go to the employees' room to flip the switch to power them off to take a look at them. After grabbing the key from the office and heading inside, we find that the power lever for the robots is actually already off, yet for some reason, the characters are still on. We decide to just manually shut them off to work on them instead. So we walk to the stage, reach up to turn off Spring Freddy, only to get that soldier boy cranked on us and get knocked the fuck out by a guy who I can only assume to be the guy we heard on the phone. We come back to playing as Thomas again, and are tasked with obviously finding a way to get the exit door unlocked. We find a key to the bathroom on the office shelf and head down the hall to go inside. Inside of the bathroom, we find a hammer that we hope we can use to break the lock on the exit door. However, as we exit the bathroom, we see the non-attractive, fat-ass version of Chica heading in our direction, so we quickly jump inside of one of the stalls to hide. We hold our breath as Chica passes by and quickly run out to the exit door. We break the handle to the door and open it, seeing the final exit door. We don't get far before Foxy jumps out at us for some fucking reason. This door was locked? Why the hell was Foxy on the other side of it? Oh well, what the fuck ever. It's a little bit more important right now that we run away from the murder robot behind us. We run back to the employee room and hide behind a shelf. Foxy walks inside, but before he can find us, he hears a noise coming from the door inside of the room. Opening it, he finds who I can only assume to be Richard and jumps him like he's in Detroit. We take this chance to book it back to the exit. As we run, we hear Richard getting torn apart, screaming. We get to the door just in time, and Jesus fucking Christ, the door is gone? What the fuck? Let's ignore the fact that this doesn't make sense, because I don't think I need to explain to you why a door disappearing doesn't make sense. We turn around to see a certain large twitching bear. He just screams in our face and disappears, clearly being a hallucination. We figure there's no better time than the present to find another exit. As we walk into the main party room, so does Spring Bonnie. And now's the time where I can talk about how he works. Spring Bonnie is as basic as it gets when it comes to a survival horror character. He patrols around the building, and if you get too close to him in his line of sight, he'll start chasing you, and he won't stop chasing you until he kills you. And there's also no chance you're going to outrun him. The only way to get him to stop chasing you without dying is to lure him to the side of the office with a door and close it. But you also really have to be careful with how you close this door, because it doesn't work how any normal FNAF door would. It only stays closed for about 2 seconds, so make sure you time this properly. Nope. Oh! I closed it! I fucking closed it! I fucking closed it! I fucking closed it! I'm dead. I'm dead as shit. If you do, Spring Bonnie should be teleported to a different room in the building. We maneuver our way around Spring Bonnie and eventually make it to the other exit of the building, only to find that the door is missing too. Isn't life just so awesome sometimes? It's at this moment we hear Richard scream, which confuses me because I thought Richard just got killed by Foxy. So if who we heard just now was Richard, then who did Foxy just kill? It couldn't have been Chris, because we saw Chris get killed by the fucker in the vents. It also couldn't be Ashley because it was 100% the scream of a man. And it can't be the engineer because he entered the building in that cutscene 26 or more years ago. This is not important at all, so let's actually continue talking about what's happening, shall we? We head back to the office where we heard the scream, only to find nobody there. We figure for some reason we should go back to the employee room. Why? Ask Shitlips Thomas, because I can't figure out a good reason to go back there, but apparently he's the FNAF expert and not me. Before we can continue, we get another engineer cutscene. We're dragged into a back room and we overhear two people talking. Well, really only one person talking, because the other guy has his voice changer on so deep thinking it'll make the e-girls wet, so I really can't even hear him.
Why didn't you just kill him? Really? Dave, you know exactly what happened before.
The voice I can hear sounds suspiciously like the guy on the phone who called us here at 5 in the fucking morning. He tells voice changer guy that he should just kill us so we don't get away like the other engineer and spread the word about what they're doing. After not doing it, the phone guy decides to just do it himself, so he enters the room and stabs us to death. Fantastic. I really shouldn't have lived in Chicago. Everyone in Chicago gets stabbed. Going back to the employee room, we find the corpse of a police officer. Seeing that his radio had been taken, we now know that whoever is behind this really knows what they're doing. But we figure that because a police officer went missing, that other officers will be arriving at some point to look for him. So knowing all we have to do is survive, this game's most agonizing survival section finally begins. And I get to explain what all of the characters do in grueling detail, because they're all laid on us at the exact same time, and we're just supposed to remember what they all do from the 2-minute phone call we got 15 minutes ago. Hooray. Alright, well, the goal is easy. Just survive until 6 AM without getting found by any of the animatronics. Sounds simple enough. All we have to do is track all of their movements and learn their patterns, and then find a spot in the massive 3D environment where none of the characters ever have a line of sight to, right? Almost, but not really, because one main character. Bonnie. Bonnie is this game's way of preventing you from doing exactly that. On certain time intervals, Bonnie will emerge from the room where the puppet is. Yes, by the way, the puppet is in this game. Don't think too much about it. There are a lot of characters from a lot of different FNAF time periods in this game, so just shut up. Anyways, Bonnie will exit this room and make his way to the employee room to turn the puppet control lever on. Once it's on, the puppet will begin moving on a track across the ceiling that leads to a door which has some chains on it. Why are there chains on this door? Well, it's to hold back and stop the big bastard himself, Fredbear. If the puppet makes it all the way to this door, it will break it down and allow Fredbear to come out. And spoiler alert, Fredbear always knows where you are, and if he gets out, you will 100% die, because as mentioned earlier, he doesn't care about the doors, and he is faster than you are. So, all you have to do to prevent this from happening is go into the employee room and turn off the puppet control lever whenever Bonnie turns it on. This leads to you needing to be moving around pretty consistently throughout this night. Why do that when you could just hide right outside of this room, or maybe even inside of it? Well, that's where Spring Bonnie comes back in. Spring Bonnie, and in fact every character during this section, has a very specific movement pattern that they will walk in. And thank God they do, because memorizing these patterns is the only reason I ever completed this section. Spring Bonnie has the habit of walking into literally every single room in the building, and his line of sight is really large, so you will have to always maneuver around him. Also, if that wasn't awesome enough, with every hour that passes during this section, each animatronic will become more and more agile, which really just means their line of sight increases. Chica is the next character I want to quickly mention, and she is pretty boring as a character. She's just Spring Bonnie, except her path doesn't cover as much ground as his does. Her line of sight also appears to be a lot smaller than his, so that's good news, I suppose. She does go through the main party room a bit during her cycle, and that will become important later when I go over my amazing strategy. Let's cover Freddy next, as he will probably cause you the least amount of issues out of every character in this game. Freddy will randomly spawn in random rooms, typically next to the doorways. All you have to do is not walk directly into him. He won't chase you, but if you get too close, he'll instantly kill you. So really just make sure you're watching where you're going. Mangle isn't that terrible either. Side note, I know its name in the game isn't actually Mangle, but fuck you. It looks just like her, and it crawls through the fucking vents like Mangle, so I'm calling it Mangle. Mangle is also the one that killed Chris in that cutscene earlier too, by the way. Mangle is also incredibly easy to deal with. On the floors and ceilings of certain rooms, there will be large vents. Occasionally, you may notice wires coming out from those vents. That means that Mangle is waiting there, and if you walk by, she'll snatch you up. So you know, once again, just like Freddy, open your eyes and you'll be just fine. Foxy is the only real problem during this night, as he's a random character with no pathing, and is also super easy to forget about. Foxy has the chance to be hiding behind any doorway at any time. The only way to tell if he's there is by standing next to the doorway and listening for quiet breathing. For some reason, you can't just move to one side of the door and check if he's standing there, since you literally can't see him even if he is there, which is something I died to in my playthrough, and you can see that over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. That's really all of the problems to worry about during this night, but Bonnie is obviously the most dangerous. So, how should you go about pulling this off? Well, when this game first came out, there was a super awesome glitch you could use to cheese this entire section. If you remember where we hid from Foxy during a cutscene, you used to be able to hide in the exact same spot, and both Bonnie and Spring Bonnie, aka the only characters that enter the employee room, wouldn't be able to see you hiding there. And since it's in the employee room, it was right next to the puppet control switch, so you could beat the entire section just by standing in one spot. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get the luxury of being able to do that, as in the newer version of this game, during this section only, an invisible wall is placed there to block your path. So I had to play the legitimate way. This is when I started to develop my strategy. I'm gonna be so real with you, it took me about 45 minutes to complete this section. I am complete ass at these types of games, which is why I never play them. I personally really dislike the mechanic of every enemy is patrolling randomly and will chase you when seen, but you also have a bunch of bullshit to do at the same time. I know it's a common mechanic, but it's just never something I was able to get into, mainly because I don't take being chased very well at all, so it just kind of gives me a lot of anxiety. Here's how this section can be beaten 100% of the time for anyone who struggles with things like this, like I do. I came up with this myself. I'm super proud of myself. I did no walkthrough because I'm the best. The first step is to run out of the employee room as fast as you can and get to the far corner of the main party room to the left of the main stage. You have to be fast because Spring Bonnie will enter this room quickly after. While in this corner, both Spring Bonnie and Bonnie will never be able to see you, which is huge since this location also gives you an easy view of both of them since they enter through the door on your left. Once in this corner, Spring Bonnie will soon pass by. After a while, Bonnie will enter the room. Bonnie is slow as shit, so this will take a while, but once you see him, you can start following him. Bonnie doesn't care so much about killing you as he does flipping the puppet switch, so you can actually get pretty close behind him. Creep, 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 creep. That's the sound I make. Creep, creep, creep. You gotta match your steps with his, bro. Boom, 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 boom. All good. But obviously, if you get too close, he'll still kill you. Once Bonnie leaves the main party room to enter the hallway, Spring Bonnie should be up near the office, so you don't have to worry about him. Take the time it takes for Bonnie to enter the employee room and flip the switch to stand by the doorway to listen for Foxy. Once Bonnie flips the switch, quickly enter the employee room and turn it off. After Bonnie flips the switch, he will exit the room through a door you can't even open, so you don't have to worry about him turning around. After flipping the switch, you want to run back to the main party room. At this point, Chica should be inside. She will walk around the tables and exit the room through the door that both Bonnies enter through. Simply be slow and follow her. Once she leaves the room, go back into the far left corner again. This is now going to begin the second cycle. This time, since the paths that Bonnie and Spring Bonnie take are much different in length, they will be a lot closer together. Bonnie will enter the room first this time, with Spring Bonnie directly behind him. Once Spring Bonnie goes up and around the tables, you can start slowly following Bonnie. At this point, you'll have to be patient, since Spring Bonnie will enter the entrance room, then travel back into the party room, and then go into the hall to the employee room. Then we'll travel to the office. So you will hear Bonnie flip the switch, and you will have to wait probably 30 to 45 seconds before you can switch it back, because if you're too fast, Spring Bonnie will see you. If you sneak past him while he's in the entrance room, it appears that Foxy will always be behind the door to the hallway and you will die. So it's your best bet to just wait for Spring Bonnie to finish his cycle and start walking to the office. I recommend waiting directly in front of the stage during this section since he won't be able to see you. Once he goes down the hall, quickly run into the employee room and flip the switch. Then quickly run back into the party room and go right into the exit doorway. Chica will be entering the party room at this point, and if you're any closer to the stage, she will see you. Once she walks around the tables, once again, you can follow her out and go back to the hiding spot in the far left corner. Now, the third cycle gets a little bit scary, so be ready. Bonnie will soon enter the room again, with Spring Bonnie fairly close behind. However, there is enough room between Bonnie and Spring Bonnie for you to be able to get in between them. Closely follow behind Bonnie and Spring Bonnie will enter the party room. Continue to follow Bonnie into the employee room and shut the switch off immediately after Bonnie turns it on. Immediately run back to the entrance of the party room. At this point, Spring Bonnie should be walking into the exit room. You can take this small window of time to run to the front of the stage. Spring Bonnie will enter the hallway, and once he does, you're safe to go back to the exit doorway. Since Spring Bonnie is near the office, you don't need to go back to the corner. In fact, you actually shouldn't, because Chica will follow behind Bonnie. Bonnie will once again pass you, and you can once again follow him into the employee room and shut the switch. After flipping this switch, this final time, you're home free. Simply sit in the employee room and this nightmare of a section will come to an end. And the best part is, since the movement of almost all of the characters is scripted, you'll be able to use this method to beat this section of the game every single time without fail. I hope you enjoyed this overtly long explanation section. It's easily what took me the longest to do while playing this game, so I figured I should devote a long time in the script talking about it. Let me know what you think. After beating this section, we get a cutscene where we're running down the hallway, being chased by Spring Bonnie. We get into the office and close the door on him, which literally cuts the fucker in half. I love this. This is peak. Absolute cinema. As we turn around, Foxy charges at us, but luckily the animatronic power gets shut off and Foxy shuts down right in front of us. Walking down the broken doors hallway, we see a deactivated Freddy, and Chica tries to kill us, only to get powered off at the same time, which actually scared me in my playthrough, which you can find on my second channel, Dxtr Black. We continue to explore the now eerily quiet building. Going back to the exit, we fall to our knees, only for a door to appear in front of us, locked by a code. A voice comes over the intercoms that sounds weirdly like the guy that killed the engineer in a previous cutscene. He tells us that he's impressed by our work and that the animatronics we faced thus far will be deactivated for the remainder of our stay, aside from two, who he calls his favorites. It's now up to us to figure out the code. We find a piece of paper on the wall that says "Find me." Not totally sure what the hell that means. We wander around into the puppet room where we find writing on the wall saying "It's me." Next to this message, we find another piece of paper saying "My back is to the corner." After reading this note, the two threats of this section activate: Fredbear and Mangle. Again, Mangle acts a bit differently, so let's talk about her first. This time, she's no longer in the vents. She's walking around the building. If she sees you, she'll roar like a dinosaur. And if you don't get out of her line of sight in 4 seconds, she'll start chasing you. And she won't stop until she catches you. So just like, run, I guess, bozo. Fredbear, on the other hand, should be scary. But because of an item we got at the beginning of this segment, he really isn't. At the start of this section, we're given a taser. Fredbear will always know where you are and will constantly be crip walking towards you. Except, Fredbear while walking is very slow, so you can easily stay away from him. Every once in a while, he will also roar for some reason, and will then begin to charge at you. While he's charging, he will be faster than you. but when he gets close, use your taser to stun him and he'll go back to walking. So avoiding the threats on this segment is honestly a cakewalk compared to what we had to deal with during the last section. Now, I had a stroke trying to figure out what my back is to the corner meant. What you have to do is find Freddy, since his back is to the corner of the wall. Except not really, because his back is just to the wall, not really the corner. Regardless, on his back is another note stating camera 2. I've neglected to mention the cameras thus far, but that's because they're literally completely useless for the most part. Throughout the building, there are several monitor stands where you can place your monitor, because I guess you can't just hold a fucking iPad with your hands. You instead need a holder like a toddler who blares annoying ass YouTube videos while in a public restaurant, and the parents just find nothing wrong with that since they'd rather have the internet raise them instead of them. Anyways, when you place the monitor down, you can look at the cameras. Big whoop. Using your eyes is better in a game like this because you can walk around freely. Regardless, looking at camera 2 now, we find another message saying, "I'm here." Going to the location of camera 2, you'll find another note saying, "Look up." On the ceiling, you'll find the number 7 and yet another note reading, "Inside my head." What this means, if you weren't a genius like me, is that you have to go to Foxy in the office and look in his mouth. Inside, you'll find the number 3 and another note reading, "Behind a curtain." Now, there are 3 curtains in this building, and you have to look at each of them in a specific order, which is dumb because all you're doing is looking behind them. Behind the last curtain, you'll see the number 7, and then some text reading, "The safest place," will start flashing on your screen. Let's pause. I really don't understand why it wasn't just another note. This is supposed to be like an escape room set up by the guy that locked us in here. How the fuck was he able to make us hallucinate a phrase? I don't know. Let's move on. The safest place refers to the office. Going back to the office, we find another note reading, "The second digit." Obviously, the second digit is the number 3, as it's the second digit we found on this little scavenger hunt. Finally, going back to the exit door, we can type in the code 6373. Fun fact, by the way, you can actually just type in this code at the start of this section if you don't want to go through all the bullshit I just explained, because there's no check here to see if you have or not. But after punching in the code, the door disappears. Opening another door that it was covering leads to another room with no fucking door. Falling to our knees again, all of a sudden the door reappears for some reason, and a bunch of police officers barge in past us, and we're taken out of the building to safety. After being rescued, we're shown a cutscene where Thomas is either being interviewed by police or is in a therapy session. I can't quite tell which one is correct. He freaks out about his friends being killed and then realizes he never heard anything from Ashley. No screams, no body found, nothing. This makes him tweak like when I'm in line at the grocery store and some 40-year-old mom pulls out her own grocery bags to save the environment. You want to know what I do when I see someone using their own bags in the grocery store? When it's my turn in line, I tell the bagger, "Hey, all my shit, double bag it." Anyways, after this cutscene, we're thrown into the credits. But that's not where this game comes to an end. We actually get a post-credit scene like it's a Marvel movie, where Thomas is in his room. He wakes up in the middle of the night and looks out his window, only to see the silhouette of an animatronic we never saw in the pizzeria staring back at him. And finally, Fredbear and Friends Reboot comes to a close. Overall, I think this game was a super enjoyable experience. Did I get overtly frustrated and almost give up while playing the survival section? Yes, but I beat it, and I'm glad I did. The story to this game is simple and nice. There's no retarded digging that we have to do to learn the simplest things like a fucking name of a character, Scott, asshole. We're instead just given a story the way it should be given. A few mysteries here and there, but nothing so overtly frustrating that it makes it not fun to figure out. The game looks gorgeous, it plays well when you understand what you're doing, and overall I would highly recommend you give it a go. Obviously, from the teaser we saw at the end of the game, a second game was clearly in the works. But with no updates for several years, and it being confirmed that at some point the game's development was put on halt, and given the fact that this game came out 7 years ago, I don't think it's very likely we'll see Chapter 2 anytime soon. But hey, only time will tell. Scopophobia is the irrational fear of being persistently stared at or watched. For most people, I feel being watched is one of those things that is just universally feared. Several forms of media have been made around it, from books to movies, and of course, horror games. But what about FNAF games? What is the scariest FNAF game you've ever played? And while playing it, did you get the strange feeling that you were being stalked? Banshee is a new FNAF fan game created by Kimarzuru and released fully on July 23rd, 2025. For a lot of people, the FNAF genre hasn't grown boring, but has lost a lot of the fear factor that it once had. I know for me personally that is the case. Sure, cheap jump scares will always startle people, but actually being scared is something that most FNAF games just aren't capable of doing anymore. Banshee, however, is different. Banshee isn't just scary, Banshee is horrifying. Grab a drink and get ready to jump into the rabbit hole that is Banshee, Five Nights at Freddy's most horrifying fan game. Banshee is a game heavily inspired by the original Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, mainly taking inspiration from the night sections of that game, wherein instead of beating the night by surviving, you instead have to complete multiple tasks, making the length of the night dependent on you. Of course, when you think of Pizzeria Simulator, the very well-known salvaging sections may come to mind, and don't worry, Banshee has those too. Before every night, you will have to salvage a character in much the same way you do so in Pizzeria Simulator. On night 1, you have to salvage Springtrap. Pause. This design is actually horrific. This is gross. I haven't seen a model from a game that made me as uncomfortable as this one has in a long time. And trust me, they only get more grotesque and uncomfortable as we follow the White Rabbit. To salvage a character, you must first play an audio cue from the tape player in front of you. You can hold up the miliguas, I don't know, to measure the animatronic's aggravation. As you play the audio, the meter will slowly rise, and having it stay on the highest setting for too long will result in a death. Additionally, your tape player may start to malfunction while the sound is playing. If you hear this, you must stop playing the tape for a few moments before turning it back on. The animatronics do not like when the tape player is broken. Once you have the animatronics aggression maxed, input some info into the computer, and it's on to the real night section. And let me tell you, if you thought the night gameplay from FNAF 6 was stressful, you're not ready for what's in store for you in Banshee. Night 1 introduces 2 characters. You may be wondering how that's possible since we've only scrapped one. And that's because one of the 2 characters was in your restaurant from the beginning, that threat being Yellow Bear. Ooh. Wait, am I not safe? Why do I get the feeling that I'm not safe? What the fuck was that? But before we can talk about the threats this night has to offer, we first need to talk about the tasks at hand and our environment. In our office, we obviously have a computer, as well as the doors to our left and right, and a window in front of us. Pressing Control will open up our computer, and this is where the first stressful mechanic comes into play. Unlike most FNAF games, where you have your mouse as the main source of user input with the occasional control key, Banshee makes use of your entire keyboard. No, I'm not joking. Your computer has 2 screens, your command screen and your camera screen. You may notice you're unable to press any buttons on the camera screen that would allow you to see around the building. So, how do you see additional cameras? This is where your command screen comes into play. By typing the command CC and pressing enter, you will get access to your camera controls, which is obviously what the CC stands for, dumbass. You can then use your arrow keys to transfer up and down between cameras. No, you cannot use your arrow keys if your camera controls are not up, which means if you're working on something else like a task and need to check a different camera, you will need to type in the camera control command and then start sifting through the cameras. This is obviously stressful as fuck for a number of reasons. On later nights when things begin becoming more hectic, if you're not a fast typer or you can't remember where the keys on your keyboard are without looking, then this will pose a very obvious problem. I mentioned your tasks. What are those exactly? Well, you have 4 tasks you have to complete. Kind of. You don't actually have to complete any tasks to beat Banshee, as there still is a 12 to 6 a.m. timer. So, what's the purpose of the tasks? And to be truthful, the answer is that I don't really know. At the end of each night, it tallies how many tasks you've completed, and that seems to have something to do with how much money you get. So I'm assuming that the only downside is not having money for your Tycoon, which is needed for the true ending. But there may be another reason I'm unsure of, and the wiki is no help. Anyways, back to the tasks. Task number 1 requires you to look at 2 items that are going to be shipped. You will have to check if both sides are identical. If they are, type Y and press enter. And if they don't match, press N and then enter. Do this 8 times and the task is complete. But if you ever mess up, you will have to start back from 0. This task is not challenging, but when paired with the other threats this game has to offer, it will quickly become stressful to even be able to manage this. Task 2 requires you to read an excerpt of Who the Fuck Knows What, and either archive it or shred it. To keep it simple, if it's good press, archive it. If it's bad press, shred that bitch. Task 3 involves sitting on your fat lazy ass and waiting for a code to decipher, and then inputting the numbers and pressing enter. Task 4 is much the same, but instead of numbers, it's arrow inputs. And that's all the tasks, which means we can start talking about the threats that this night has to offer. The first of which being the one I mentioned earlier, Yellow Bear. While you never really actually see him, he does still attack you. Throughout the night, you will be able to see posters, drawings, and books around your office that start to change to say "It's me." If too many of these anomalies occur, Yellow Bear will appear and kill you. In order to make these anomalies go away, you will need to look forward, not have your computer on, and close your eyes for who the fuck knows how long. When you open them back up, they should be gone. If they're not, close your eyes for longer next time, dumbass. Hands down, the easiest threat in this entire game. The other threat is obviously Springtrap, or as this game calls him, just Afton. Afton will walk around the cameras and make his way to your left door. When he's there, he will make no sound cues. Or at least, if he does make a sound cue, I was just never able to hear it. When he is there, all you have to do is turn at him and stare until he moonwalks back into the darkness. Again, some of the creepiest shit I've ever seen.
So where is he?
What the fuck was that? Oh my god, that's actually so fucked. Dude, that's actually so fucked up. That's actually so fucked, dude. Oh my fuck. Oh my fuck. And that's it. Either by completing all the tasks or surviving until 6 a.m., the night will be finished and we're safe to move on to night 2. Now, before we do that, this is where I should probably talk about the Tycoon section of this game, but that whole pile of bullshit will be saved until later, because in my full playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I butchered the Tycoon sections so fucking horribly, you have no idea how badly I fucked them up. So I'll just save that for later. For now, we move on to Salvage 2. Salvage 2 is called Molten, who I originally thought was Ennard. And maybe it is, and this is just another case of the game giving it a different name. I'm not sure. Regardless, he is obviously the threat introduced on this night. So, how does he work? He actually has 2 different mechanics and methods of attack. The first is very similar to Afton, except he attacks from the right door instead of the left. Same thing for him, just look at him and he'll go away. However, once he goes away, he has a chance to initiate his second attack, which by the way can also happen at any time, not just when he leaves your office. Your lights will begin to flicker and an audible sound cue will be heard. This tells you that you need to very quickly find Molten on the cameras. God, is there a FNAF game in existence that doesn't have this fuck-ass mechanic? Whatever. Obviously, you'll probably be doing a task when this happens, so you'll have to type the camera control command and then start using the arrow keys to find him. When you do, you will need to type play and press enter, which will begin playing an audio lure on whatever camera you're looking at. This audio lure will make Molten piss off, which makes everyone happy. Overall, not too difficult. However, from what the community has said, Molten by far caused more deaths than any other character, and I can somewhat agree on that. Night 3 has a scrap Lefty, who in this game is a girl. Maybe Lefty was a girl in the original too? I'm not sure, not important. Lefty can prove to be a very frustrating character, but once you understand how she works, it really shouldn't be an issue. Lefty will very slowly move through the cameras to get to your office. However, if she gets to your office, she'll kill you no matter what. So you have to find a way to keep her from reaching you. Once she progresses to a camera, she will never move back. However, you can use the audio lure on whatever camera she's in to slow her down. This won't stop her from moving, but it will slow her progress dramatically. So much so that even on the hardest non-custom night she appears in, she only ever moved once for me. This obviously does bring up a conflict with Molten, but with how slowly Lefty moves, getting back to her camera in time to put the lore back on really shouldn't be much of an issue. Night 4 introduces the final new character, Baby. Baby is easily the most infuriating character throughout this entire game, and it's not even close. Baby will move through the cameras. Who the fuck cares? Once she's in your office, she will appear in the window in front of you. After a few seconds, she will either walk left or right. Depending on which direction she walks, you will have to close the door on the corresponding side. Something I didn't even know you could do up until this night. After you close the door, a small sound key will play letting you know she's left, and then you can reopen the door. This doesn't sound too hard, I hear you saying. Well, I haven't told you about the bullshit butt-fuck wombo combo butt-bang strategy that she has. Basically, the bullshit butt-fuck wombo combo butt-bang strategy involves Baby doing a fucking fusion dance with Molten. And when they do, they decide it'd be really fucking funny to attack you at the same time, which, if you couldn't have guessed already, is literally an immediate loss, as both means of fending them off take up a decent amount of time. The amount of time it would take is enough to have the other butt fuck you in the ass, hence the name, bullshit butt fuck wombo combo butt bang strategy.
There's Baby up there. Oh. Yeah.
This is cooked. This is cooked. This is actually cooked. Bro, I'm fucked. I'm fucked. There's nothing I can do about that. I was pressing enter, you. That was just cooked. There was nothing I could do about that. I don't know how long I have to hold it for Baby. And he was on my ass. I really didn't know what to do there. Really didn't know what the option was. This is really the only huge RNG problem this game has, and it doesn't happen nearly as often as something like Torbani Vent Aids does. Finally, we have Night 5, which is an interesting night, to say the least, as it's actually easier than Night 4. Sure, the animatronics are more aggressive, but I still think overall it's probably easier than Night 4 is. No new threats are added, however, one of them is removed. That being Lefty. What is the reason for having Lefty not present on this night? I'm really not sure. So this night goes just about as well as you'd expect it to. And with that, the game is over. We get a final monologue from Henry as he burns down the building with us inside, mentioning how he didn't want us to go, but he needs to bring his daughter back. I'm gonna be honest, I don't give a fuck about this ending. You wanna know why? Because it's not canon in any way. Yeah. This is the bad ending, by the way. The true ending has a lot to do with the Tycoon sections of the game. And god damn it, that means it's time for me to go over this bullshit. First, let's go over how I fucked up this Tycoon section as hard as I did. When you first load up the game and open the Tycoon section, this is what the Tycoon looks like. Fantastic. Looks like we're going to build off of this. Pretty interesting and different from the original. Wanna know the fucking hilarious part? The game expects you to press this button and erase your Tycoon save data so that the tutorial for the Tycoon section will begin playing. Does it tell you to do this? No. So why the fuck would I even think to do it? Sure, I pressed the button and saw the message to erase the save in my playthrough, but this is literally the first time I'm seeing the Tycoon. Why in God's green fuck would I think to reset the data of the Tycoon when I've never seen it look any different? I'm expecting to get comments calling me stupid for not figuring this out, but fuck you. You wouldn't buy a game, start the game up, and then think, actually, before I start playing this brand new game I've never played before and is brand fucking new, I should reset the save data for it first. You would never think of that. I'm sorry, this is just the most retarded thing I've ever seen. There is literally no indication whatsoever that I should reset the save. If there was indication, then there wouldn't be an issue, but there isn't. I'm just shown the Tycoon and that's it. But hey, let's just relax for a moment and pretend like this part of the game actually makes sense. What exactly do you do? Well, you obviously go through the tutorial and learn how to play the Tycoon, and then can get to building. And then from there, it's just Pizzeria Simulator. Buy things from the catalog and add them to your pizzeria to get points and level up. Fantastic! Completing the tasks during the nights will give you the money you need to buy more in the Tycoon sections as well. Fantastic! Now, after completing night 1 is where the game starts to get a bit interesting. On the main menu, after completing night 1, you will see this big red box. Clicking on it will reveal a statue of a Banshee. Turning it to its side will reveal a note describing that you need to look northwest to find a key. Wait one night and look again to find a door, presumably that the key would be used in. Going to your Tycoon and scrolling all the way northwest, you'll be able to see a small red dot. Clicking on it will reveal a golden rose, which is presumably the key that was referenced in the note. Now, pause. I'm going to complain here again about how I fucked this up so badly. I had no idea that the map could be scrolled. Why? Because I was never taught in the tutorial, and I never saw the tutorial for reasons explained earlier. However, what I did do was click around the top northwest corner of the screen looking for this key. Clicking the big sign reveals a very dark red screen with some random text that'll become important later. So, this leads me to believe that this was the thing northwest that I was supposed to see. I thought I was doing the right thing. This series of coincidences is actually insane. Sure, there's no literal key here, but that led me to assume that the key was a metaphor for something else. Now tell me, would it be unreasonable for me to suspect some kind of retarded metaphor from a FNAF game? I don't think so, but whatever. After beating night 2, if you go back to the Tycoon and press the red dot again, you'll see a golden pillar. Altar? I don't fucking know what this thing is. You can place the rose you got from the previous night there, which reveals a drawing of the marionette, the same drawing that you can see in your office above your computer. During night 3, if you click the marionette poster, you'll see what I believe to be a chair and a clock. I think. I have no idea what I'm looking at. You can push the chair underneath the clock and the pendulum of the clock will fall. You can then collect the pendulum. You will then get kicked out of the night back to the title screen. Clicking on the red box again will show the statue once more. You can then take the pendulum and place it into the stomach of the statue. Seriously, don't read into this too much. This is some fucked up Aoni type puzzle. Don't read into it, just accept it. After completing night 3, if you click the red box again, you'll get a cutscene. In it, you'll see clouds parting in the sky and a code appears behind them, along with the text, "The safe." Then you can go into your Tycoon, and instead of typing Tycoon into the directory, you can type Clown, which will start up a remake of the Clown minigame from Pizzeria Simulator. You can also play the Ball Pit minigame and Midnight Motorist. As I'm sure you could have guessed, the Midnight Motorist minigame actually serves some sort of importance. This minigame plays a lot differently than the original. It's a text-based adventure rather than a side-scroller. In it, you can walk around a forest and look at trees, something you all have never done before. Searching some of the trees, you can find a pendant. Walking to a lake, you can find an old man fishing. This person is who I assume to be Old Man Consequences. If you talk to him, he'll tell you the story of a girl who found a rabbit. The rabbit eventually dies and her father gets her to bury it. Later, she digs up the corpse only to find that the rabbit's fur had turned yellow. Oh my god, guys! Like Spring Bonnie, do you get it? Can you fucking believe it? Oh my god, I'm gonna bounce up and down, dropping my cheeks and testicles all over my desk! Oh yeah, you can also give the old man the pendant you found and he'll say that it belonged to her. Looking in some more trees, you can find blood-stained glasses. If you bring them to a man by a house, he'll tell you that they were your brothers. After beating night 4, you should be able to buy the safe item from the Tycoon. We'll get to that later. Clicking on it will prompt you to type in a code. Typing in the code we saw in the cutscene earlier will open the safe, revealing a picture of a locked gate inside. After buying everything else in the Tycoon section, if you load the original version of the Tycoon and click the logo, you'll be sent to the gate. If you've done everything correctly, clicking on it will spawn you onto a boat. On the boat, you're told a story. Once again, I assume this story is being told by Old Man Consequences. He tells the story of Charlotte, Henry's daughter, the girl who was pushed outside of the pizzeria in the rain and left outside where she was later found dead. The story is abruptly ended by the line, "She isn't there anymore, Henry." Finally, if you've done everything properly and at the right times, when you enter night 5, the puppet will be present, likely being the reason Lefty isn't there. The puppet acts as this game's final boss. So let's quickly go over her mechanics. The puppet can appear in any of your 2 doors. When she does, simply close the doors and she'll go away. Additionally, she will play a laughing sound cue. When she does, you must... find her on the cameras, and stare at her until she leaves. And as far as I'm aware, that's all that she does throughout this night. That may not seem like a huge issue, but of course, when paired with everything else and the bullshit buttfuck wombo combo butt bang strategy at the same time, this can be a very stressful night. But if you manage to beat it, you'll get one last cutscene. Michael Afton, alone in the suffocating darkness. He turns his lighter on, only to see the yellow bear, his own brother, staring back at him. Unable to look away, eventually even his brother leaves, leaving Michael truly alone. Knowing there's nothing left that he can do, Michael sets the building ablaze, killing himself while also allowing the souls, his brother, and Charlotte to rest. And with that, Banshee comes to a close. But hold up, want to hear something awesome? If you remember, I said you have to get the safe in order to get the true ending. Well, I was chatting with the owner of the FNAF fan game wiki, City, and he told me that it is literally impossible to get the safe on your first playthrough, as it isn't possible to get enough experience to get to level 5. Since your Tycoon save and your game save are separate from each other, you can restart the main game and still save your Tycoon as it was, making it possible to reach level 5 and buy the safe on the second playthrough. I personally think this is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Forcing someone to play through the entirety of the game twice to get an ending is insane. Yes, I'm aware New Game Plus is a thing, and yes, I hate New Game Plus as well. But aside from that, this game is truly fantastic. From the visuals, to the gameplay, to the atmosphere, and of course, the amazing retelling of the FNAF 6 story, I think it is easily one of the best FNAF games of recent times, if not ever. Easy S-tier game, and I would highly recommend it. This game does such a perfect job of bringing the fear to this series that I feel it really needs. The story of Five Nights at Freddy's is grim, and the game should amplify that, not take away from it. What Five Nights at Freddy's game do you think is the scariest? Maybe you think Five Nights at Freddy's 3 or FNAF 4 because of their atmosphere, but what if we branch out into fan games? Maybe you think Juniors because of its disgusting and terrifying art style. Maybe you think A Shadow Over Freddy's because of its free roam mechanics. I have recently played a FNAF fan game that I personally feel is the scariest one ever designed, but probably not for the reason you think. Today, we'll be covering Five Nights to Remember, a FNAF fan game where the animatronics stalk you like no other FNAF game does before. Let's waste no time and jump right in. Night 1 starts off strong and gets down to the basics as usual. And the moment I opened up the cameras and saw Fredbear and Spring Bonnie on stage, I already knew that this game was getting a Dxtr White video.
And management really wants me to help you with your
These look
first
real.
week,
These look
but
actually real. What the
getting
fuck?
to the point,
The designs of the characters in this game aren't necessarily anything to write home about. We've seen Fredbear and Spring Bonnie designs 1,000 times before. But the way they're used in this game, in combination with poses and lighting, are honestly some of the creepiest pieces of art I've ever seen. They almost look real. It's almost like they took a picture of two actual animatronics and thrown them into the game, and I love it. But the creepy and realistic poses don't end there. Every single camera frame with these guys just feels uncomfortable to look at in a good way.
Oh, I don't know how much I like that. No, I don't like that at all, actually. That's fucking creepy. I'm not gonna lie, usually FNAF games don't creep me out, but that is fucking creepy as shit.
You'll notice as you play that the characters in this game move pretty quickly, which is something I actually enjoy. Most of the time in FNAF games, the first 2 nights are very uneventful, and in some instances, the characters never even make it to your office by the time the night ends. Once Spring Bonnie made it to my office, I knew 100% I couldn't ignore a white video on this game. Take a look for yourself. Oh my fucking god. Play the fucking tape and back up.
He didn't get sent back to the fucking...
Go the fuck away! Fucking yuck. He was busting it down. Did you see that? He was shaking his cock and shit. I saw him. I saw you do that, bro.
You whipped it out. It was dangling all over my fucking desk and shit. Slapped a straw in my drink, bro. The sheer feeling of fear I felt in this moment is something I've never felt before playing a FNAF game. Fredbear and Spring Bonnie stalk you throughout this game, taking peeks into your office to check if you're distracted. If you look closely, you'll actually be able to see them before they peek in, hiding in the safety of the darkness. Flashing your light at them makes them hide around a corner, but they don't give up there. They'll wait for a moment, and eventually peer back in to check on you, and they will never leave until they can get the jump on you. The moment you aren't locked in on what they're doing, the moment you check the cameras for too long, the moment you turn away, they jump into your office and attack. Now I have to take a break from being dramatic to talk about how this game actually plays, and why the rabbit on your screen right now is currently shaking its dick in your face. Thankfully, this game doesn't use a power system, something I'm noticing a lot more recent FNAF games have been turning away from, which I actually really like because power systems make me want to stick my penis in a badger hole. However, there still is an important resource in the game that is limited: your tape player. When an animatronic is geeking out in your office, you'll have to quickly lift up your tape player and play the restaurant music. This will trick the animatronic into going back on stage to perform. The tape player only has a track that's so long, so you can't just let it play out throughout the whole night. You'll also notice that the rewind button on the tape player has been completely removed. What a nice touch, guys. Thanks. Fredbear works much in the same way as Spring Bonnie, except instead of attacking from your hall, he attacks from the curtains in front of you. You'll be able to see him quietly open them to look in at you. Once again, some of the creepiest shit I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. Get the fuck out! Bro, you can see him real time stepping in. That's so fucked. Stop, bro! Fuck, dude, I see him standing there. As of night 1, there's only one other threat to deal with. HIM, also known as Cake Bear. I'm not sure what the HIM stands for, by the way, and the wiki doesn't tell me. Cake Bear acts as this game's marionette, having a music box for you to keep track of on camera too. I usually hate music boxes, but this one honestly isn't too bad, and I actually never once died to Cake Bear throughout my entire playthrough, which you could watch on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Rather than having to wind the music box like in FNAF 2, instead all you have to do is click it once, and it'll start winding by itself. It's a small change, but a change we all needed to have in our lives. The music box goes down pretty slowly, so you really shouldn't have any problems with it as long as you check the cameras every now and again. Night 2 is actually when Fredbear becomes active, but since I already explained him, I'm going to take this time to talk about one of my favorite things in this game: skipping phone calls. That may sound stupid to you, but if you play FNAF games, this is something that will make you cream in your pants when you hear it. Unlike most FNAF games, where you play out the night while the phone call is happening, in Five Nights to Remember, the animatronics and music box actually don't become active until the phone call is complete, giving you the freedom to just relax and listen to the phone call without getting anally bombarded by freaky-out robots. Which also means if you die on a night and restart and skip the phone call, rather than having to wait in silence for the animatronics to become active, when skipping the phone call, they actually will just immediately start. Again, this is something so small, but holy shit, it makes me happy. The Radiance team are some of the most clever people on the face of the earth. I would make out with every one of you. Hit my line. Something else I should mention, after completing each night, you'll get to play a basic catching minigame, where you need to catch good objects and avoid purple objects. If you get a good score, you'll be rewarded with an upgrade to your flashlight, which will cause animatronics at your doors to be stunned for longer when used. A FNAF game with upgrades. This is so fucking cool. Night 3 brings on what is probably this game's biggest threat, Vision Foxy. But before I cover him, I want to cover the other character added in this night, Vision Chica. Vision Chica works exactly the same as Phantom Chica does in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. She has a chance to appear on any camera, and you can't look at her for too long. If you do, she'll disable your camera for a short amount of time, which will leave you vulnerable to Cake Bear and Vision Foxy, who we'll cover now. Throughout the night, you'll be able to hear Foxy humming. When you hear him doing this, he will appear on either camera 8 or camera 1, aka the two cameras that lead directly to your office. You'll have to quickly figure out which camera he's on, and when you find him, you'll see him sprinting down the hallway. You will then need to pull down the cameras faster than I pull down my pants when I see toy Chica, and hold your flashlight down on the doorway he's running towards. You'll be able to see him peer in at you, which is just so fucking cool and creepy. And if you keep the light held on him long enough, he will eventually go away. While this mechanic isn't by itself difficult, I'm sure you could guess that in combination with the other characters, Foxy is probably going to be your main run killer throughout this game. Something really great to note about Foxy, however, if Bonnie or Fredbear are at one of your doors, you'll know which camera Foxy will attack at, because he won't be able to come to a door that's already occupied. So keeping track of where everyone is and stalling them as long as possible can actually be used to your advantage. Night 4 is when this game really starts to ramp up in difficulty, and is also where you get to hear me complain. Yay! The part you've all been waiting for! Wouldn't be a Dxtr White video if I didn't lose my goddamn mind, now would it? Night 4 introduces Vision Freddy and Vision Bonnie, the two characters that make me want to rip a baby owl into 40 pieces. Let's start with the most infuriating of the two, Vision Freddy. Vision Freddy has a random chance to appear in either one of your two doorways. He himself will never attack, but he will absolutely fuck up your tempo while you're trying to play. My strategy tended to be wind the music box, flash both doorways, and repeat. However, you're not allowed to flash Freddy. If you do, he will disable your flashlight in that doorway, which will obviously lead to your death. Oh shit, I was supposed to flash him. Oh yeah, okay, I see. I get it. I gotta be really fucking careful. I can't just grossly flash my lights. I also want to mention that this doesn't make even a lick of sense at all. I have one flashlight. How the hell did he disable it only on one side of my office? I can't even wrap my mind around that concept, but whatever. Vision Freddy will lead you to have all sorts of problems during your playthrough. Not only at this point will you have grown accustomed to constantly flashing your doorways without thinking, you've most certainly grown accustomed to flashing your doorways when you see something. And to now have something punish you for doing so is absolutely brutal. Now let's switch gears like Luffy over to Vision Bonnie. I said Freddy is worse than this, but that in no way means Bonnie isn't worse than a car accident. Bonnie has a chance to appear in the computer monitor on your desk at any time. Usually, the most inconvenient fucking time possible. When you see Bonnie on your screen, you will quickly have to find him on one of your cameras and stare at him. This is a mechanic in FNAF games I cannot fucking stand. I'm not totally sure why I hate it so much, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's because of stupid ass fucking geeked up Sheriff Slithers from Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. That goofy ass snake has destroyed my will to live. If you don't find Bonnie fast enough, I'm sure you could guess what happens. Your ass is on the menu at Golden Corral and Bonnie is hopping up and down in line like a fat ass waiting to chomp down on your muff. Before I dive into Night 5, I should quickly explain what's been going on throughout the phone calls up until this point. As the nights have gone on, the phone guy has been telling us about how the company has been wanting to switch to spring-lock animatronics. Oh boy, we all know how this turns out. On one of the earlier nights, we actually see that Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are tossed into the back room and no longer start on stage, and that the new Springlock animatronics can be seen on one of the cameras instead. Fun fact, these Springlocks never attack you. I jeeped in my pants when I saw them for the first time because I thought I was about to get bent over backwards and fucked in front of all of the animatronics by them. Well, on Night 4, we're told that someone will be testing the Springlock costumes in the morning for the first time. And on Night 5, you'll notice we have access to a brand spanking new camera, Camera 9. On this camera, we can see the very Springlock costume, with the corpse of one of the workers still inside. We're told on this night by the phone guy that he was there when it happened, and that they followed the protocol perfectly, and this still happened. In this game, no, this corpse is not William Afton, just some random employee, but damn! This is probably one of the coolest moments I've seen come out of a FNAF game, and it would have never been this cool without the phone guy's amazing deliveries on his lines throughout the game. You can listen to each of them during my full playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black. But how does Night 5 play? Well, it's an everything night, something I've noticed becoming more common in newer FNAF games. I've noticed that a lot of FNAF games nowadays have a Night 5 that introduces a boss character to really show off the climax of their game with one final fight. I think this is pretty cool, but I'm also a little nervous that this concept will become stale quickly, but I guess only time will tell. The Victim is a new animatronic active in this night, freely attacking your office whenever he feels like it. Unlike Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, you will not be able to stall him at your door, because he doesn't give a fuck about that door. He thinks that door's a bitch. I know, he told me. Deal with him in the same way you deal with Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, by using the tape player. I said this night was an everything night, and when I use the term everything night, I mean one character taking on the role of every character you've seen so far. Golden Freddy does exactly this, or this game just calls him the Yellow Bear, taking the role of every other animatronic we've seen up until this point. The extra addition of the Victim really drives up the difficulty of this night. The pressure is high the whole time, and you will barely have any room to breathe. But with all of the cool shit we've seen, we need to take a step back. And I need you to all take a breath with me, because what I'm about to talk about next will make you shit yourself. So just please, pause the video, get a glass of water, and get ready for me to talk about the stupidest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. Night 6 is a remake of an old FNAF game called One Night to Remember, and oh my god, is it dumb. Let's talk about it. One Night to Remember features an interesting cast of characters, to say the least, with characters we all know and love, like Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, Plushtrap, the original, Corpse, Stan, Mini Stans, Ben. Who the fuck is Ben? I'll go over this part quickly for the sake of your sanity. In your office, you have a music button. It's pretty much just the tape player from the main game, except you can't choose when to turn it off. It kinda just turns off whenever. If you see Fredbear at your door, you'll have to play the music to make him go away. If you see Spring Bonnie at your door, you'll have to play the music to make him go away. If you see the Corpse at your door, you'll have to play the music to make him go away. If you see Stan on your ceiling, can you guess what you need to do? That's exactly right. You have to play the music to make him go away. That's the end of that running joke, thankfully. Mini stands don't directly kill you. Instead, if you sit in your office for too long without pulling up your camera, they'll make Stan move faster. Plushtrap will occasionally run past your window. If he does, quickly pull up your camera, and I guess he fucking dies for some reason. Ben is a G. If he shows up in your office, you have to play peekaboo with him and cover your eyes until he goes away. Ben has no concept of object permanence. He's 2. Finally, the original. He slowly moves around your cameras to your office. If he gets to your office, you die no matter what. Even if you play the music, which is bullshit. If you stare him down on the cameras, it will stall him, making him approach your office much slower. Do that for 6 hours and congrats, you've beaten this game's weird-ass Night 6. Hope you're proud of yourself, because we've still got Custom Night to talk about. Usually, I don't talk about Custom Night, but this Custom Night has some new characters, and one of them I bet you fucking freaks will goon over. Thanks, Radiance team, for making me put goon bait on my screen. All 4 new characters are unlockable by completing Custom Night challenges. If you complete the 6th night of the game, you'll unlock Stan. Side note, I know that Night 6 is not a Custom Night challenge, hop off my pecker dog. Stan is pretty simple. Starting in your office, he will slowly try to drop down onto your head like any spider would do. Use the bug spray on your desk to keep him away. If you don't, Dunyan rings for you, bro. Also, side note, why would we use bug spray on a spider? Spider's not an insect. It's an arachnid. You know what? That's not important. If you complete the Imaginary Night challenge, you'll unlock Ben. Ben will randomly appear in your office and try to take a picture of you to post on his OnlyFans. When he does, you must quickly look left and right to prevent him from getting a good angle. And trust me, Ben loves his angles.
You take a picture with your ass out and your back bent in with your pussy barely peeking through from a low angle with your face in it, winking with your tongue out and your feet in it, and your arches exposed and your toes clenched and your torso at 3/4 rotation with your side boob and your nipples just out of sight with a choker on and your panties around your waist with the middle pulled to the side.
Beating the Nightmare Challenge will unlock Bite, a character that will only move on the cameras if your tape is playing music, giving you reason to stall characters in the hall for as long as you can. If he gets to your office, it's 100% game over and there's nothing you can do about it. Finally, I have to talk about the edging material. If you complete the old school challenge, you will unlock Bunny. Bunny sits on your desk and seduces you. All you need to do to get rid of her is boop her nose. While she is seducing you, all of the other animatronics get jealous of you and become disgustingly more aggressive.
All right, editor, get her off the fucking screen now. I don't need an army of gooners jeebing all over their iPads, bro. Thank you. And with that, that's all Five Nights to Remember has to offer. This is honestly probably the scariest FNAF fan game I've ever played. Throughout the entirety of it, I felt in danger. I felt like me using the light to push them away from the door was actually a last-ditch effort to save myself. It's a feeling of dread that no other game has ever been able to give me, and I think that's pretty neat. Recently, I've been covering a lot of very well-known fan games on this channel. Five Nights at Candy's, Pop Goes, and Animatronic Memories are probably names you're all familiar with. Recently, I've been looking for a FNAF game to cover that I personally had never heard of, and today I've definitely found one. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's super weird, but however, it does have its charm and an amazing story. So, let's waste no time and hop right into Tales of the Bunnyman. Tales of the Bunnyman opens with a cutscene that reminds me a lot of the old official Five Nights at Freddy's trailers, specifically Five Nights at Freddy's 2. We get several shots of the pizzeria interlaced with pieces of dialogue explaining the exposition of the story. We play as a man named Vincent Baldwin, who we later learn used to be a night guard and is one of the missing children's fathers, the father of Cassidy. We're entering the building to do some investigating and find out where our missing child went. And with our motive in mind, we're safe to head into Night 1 and start talking about what this game really has to offer. Night 1 introduces two characters, but before I start talking about them, I want to talk about the office itself. In our office, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this picture. I don't know who this is. I checked the wiki and couldn't figure out who this is. That's it. I just don't know who this is. Anyways, on to something actually important. The coolest thing I noticed about this office is that there are actually two rooms that we can move between, the typical office room and the boiler room. I'll talk more about the boiler room later when it becomes important. The door to the boiler room can be held shut, as animatronics will actually have to travel through it in order to get to your office. The only other things in our office is our camera system and a giant gift box. We can hide inside of this gift box to be able to protect ourselves from the first major threat of this night, Foxy. Foxy behaves pretty much exactly the same as in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. He starts on Pirate's Cove and makes his way through some phases before attacking. However, something unique about Foxy is he actually has two completely different attacks he can perform, each of which requires you to do something completely different to counteract him. The first attack he has is pretty simple. After he leaves Pirate's Cove, he will charge towards your office. When he does, you'll have to quickly jump inside the present until you hear him run away, after which you can jump back out and continue. His other attack is unfortunately a mechanic I've grown to dislike more and more as I play FNAF games. After leaving Pirate's Cove, Foxy has a chance to appear randomly on one of your cameras. When he does, all you have to do is find him and stare at him until he goes back to Pirate's Cove. This is mainly a me thing, but I've personally grown tired of the find them on the cameras mechanic. Yes, I do play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living, so yes, I'm going to see repeated mechanics a lot. Most sane people don't play as much Five Nights at Freddy's as I do, so most people won't find this mechanic to be that big of a deal, but hey, at least it's not a stupid fucking music box mechanic. We'll talk about that later. The only other threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Bonnie is incredibly simple in how he works, as is typical in most FNAF games that feature him. Bonnie will make his way through the building and to your office. Afterwards, you'll be able to hear him at your door. You'll need to quickly go up to the door and hold it shut until you hear him leave, like Five Nights at Freddy's 4. When you do, you'll know it's safe to reopen the door and continue the night. Very basic. That's just how we like Bonnie, isn't it, guys? Right? You like it when Bonnie's basic, right? You wouldn't want Bonnie to just hot bottom right into your office and start fingering you, would you? Freak. And with that, we can move on to the post-night 1 minigame. Here's where we get to talking a lot about how cool this game really is. This game does narrative storytelling in a different way than any other FNAF game I've ever seen. Instead of an 8-bit minigame or a slideshow lore dump,
Tales of the Bunnyman turns into a visual novel during the post-night sections, having you play in the perspective of a different character each night. I think this is actually super cool. While yes, you may think that it looks straight out of a My Hero Academia DeviantArt fan page, it is very clear that an amazing amount of care and effort went into these post-night sections, and that cannot go unnoticed. Before I really start talking about the lore of this game, I need to make it incredibly clear that there was so much poured into this story. There's so many details that I could point out that would make this video quite literally take hours to complete. And while I'd love to be able to talk about all of it, I don't have the confidence in myself to do so, and to be able to portray it in the way that it rightfully deserves. I'll be going over what happens in the story, but I won't be diving into every single minute detail, and I apologize if you were hoping that I would. Anyways, in this minigame, we play in the perspective of Jeremy Jr. Fitzgerald. After hanging out with his friends at Freddy Fazbear's, he notices that his mom has not yet come to pick him up. After waiting an extended period of time, he decides to just watch the performance on stage. Hearing a strange whistling coming from backstage, he enters to investigate, only to abruptly get abducted and murdered by the Bunny Man, going on to possess Bonnie. I honestly think that these post-night minigames are a breath of fresh air in this genre. I've never seen anything like it before, and I'd love to see more FNAF games try to do something new like this to tell their story. But now it's time for us to move on to Night 2. Night 2 only introduces one new thread, that being Chica. Chica does exactly what you'd expect her to do, and no, I don't mean eating until she pops like a balloon. What I really mean is moving through the cameras and then going to your office. Oh my fucking god, that is gross. Yuck. Fucking yuck, bro. She does go through one additional camera compared to Bonnie, making you see her less often than him, but other than that, she's exactly the same as Bonnie. I'll also use this night to talk about the only thing I dislike about this game. The mouse. Oh my god, this mouse is atrocious. Oh no, this mouse is really bad. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you'll already know that the way the mouse works is always something I'll have a problem with when fan games try to switch it up. In most FNAF games, when you move your mouse to the side of the screen will scroll in that direction until it hits the end of your office. That makes sense, and this is good. Tales of the Bunnyman instead decided to take a route similar to Sister Location. If you are to move your mouse to one side of the screen in Tales of the Bunnyman, your mouse won't follow the moving office. Instead, the game will keep track of its simulated X and Y positions in the office. And while this may sound super cool, in practice, it leads to you having to move your mouse all the way across your desk or increasing your mouse's sensitivity to be able to make up for it. Is this nitpicky? Yes. But I am giving my opinion on a game, so I think it's important to talk about things that I notice, especially when it's the main interaction mechanic in the entire game. Anyways, moving on to the post-Night 2 minigame, where we play in the perspective of Susie Sutherland. The group of friends were supposed to play the newly installed arcade game, Pop Goes vs. the Machinist? 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 Mechanist? Machinist? I don't know. Instead, she decides to split up from the group to go look for Bonnie. Walking around the building, we can talk to a kid named Ollie, who mentions something about Bonnie acting weird recently. Given the timeline of the events this game has, I'm fairly certain that this cutscene is taking place 16 days after Jeremy's disappearance. So I think it's safe to say that Jeremy at this point in time is already inside of the Bonnie costume. During this minigame is when Susie can also find a VHS tape relating to Edwin Murray. If you couldn't already tell, this game's story is heavily entwined with the official FNAF games. Later, Susie heads over to Pirate's Cove to get a peek at Foxy, getting startled by William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. It's at this point I need to mention two things. One, why is this specific camera in the post-nights a 3D render instead of the usual 2D drawing? And two, why is William the only character in the entire game to have voice acting? Mr. Afton, don't scare me like that.
Now, what's a missy like you doing snooping around a pirate's property?
Why is he voice acted? I'm much more curious about my second question. I was a little caught off guard when I first heard him speak, since, again, nobody in the game thus far ever has. But regardless, that's not very important. After a brief, uncomfortable conversation with Afton, we meet up with our friends again at the new arcade machine, and as we play the game, we're seen being stalked by the Bunny Man. If you couldn't already guess, Susie Sutherland goes on to possess Chica. Now it's time to talk about Night 3, which introduces one new threat, Freddy and the Marionette. Now, pause. Let's just stop for a moment and talk about Freddy first, okay? Freddy, like Foxy, has two different attacks. We'll talk about the more simple one first. Freddy will make his way through the cameras and enter your boiler room. The reason he does so is to attempt to cut the power, because doing so will allow for the Marionette to come spread your buns and lick up your crack. To prevent this from happening, we will have to enter the boiler room and hold our flashlight on his face, causing him to bug out and leave the boiler room. However, before he does, we actually get to see him creepily tilt his body. Such a small detail, but I actually really like it. Now we can talk about the other mechanic Freddy has that I originally thought was going to make me want to skin an elephant. As previously mentioned, it's clear that Freddy wants to assist in helping the Marionette grope us. So, Freddy's other attack is him going to the music box to fuck up the Marionette's sleep schedule. Fun fact, I used to work a graveyard shift at a news station, and let me tell you, you don't want to fuck with nobody's sleep schedule, bro. So, in order to save the Marionette's sanity, we must remotely shut down the music box before Freddy can finish. Moving on to the Night 3 post-night minigame, we play in the perspective of Fritz Smith II. Let me tell you, this guy is a big fan of Foxy. So much so that he insists on constantly talking like a pirate, something that made me want to eat my own lungs throughout my playthrough because I was writhing in cringe. A.S. the worst one. It be fixin' to be jolly. What the fuck does that mean? Fritz leaves the group to go look for Foxy. Going to Pirate's Cove, he finds a decommissioned Foxy behind the curtains. Additionally, he finds a diary written by Henry. I guess for some reason, this is where Henry goes to vent, right next to the fucked up looking robot. A little weird, Henry, but you do you, boo. Inside of the diary, we read that Henry is struggling to cope with the loss of his daughter and his theory about Jeremy and Susie's disappearances having something to do with each other. Little did he know how right he truly was. Whilst continuing to read the diary, the Bunny Man appears behind him and drags him into the back room, all while taunting him, saying that he thought he was more interested in Foxy than Henry's diary. Fritz would go on to possess Foxy. Moving on to Night 4, we get to talk about a very odd threat, Balloon Boy. Yes, for some reason, Balloon Boy is in this game. Don't question it. I guess the developer of this game just hates fun. Balloon Boy isn't a very difficult threat to deal with, thankfully, instead serving more of an annoyance, which is very fitting for his character. Balloon Boy can only appear in two rooms in the entire game, the boiler room and your backstage camera. You'll have to listen out for a vent sound cue. When you hear it, you'll have to travel to the back room and find where Balloon Boy is, because, unlike Freddy, he has multiple different locations that he can stand in. Once you find Balloon Boy, just like Freddy, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him until he goes away. I'm really not entirely sure why Balloon Boy exists in this game. I have yet to find any story reason for it either. Maybe it's just a popular character to put into the game, or maybe I'm just reading way too much into this. I'm not really sure, but hey, let's move on to the post-Night 4 minigame. In this minigame, we play as Gabriel Collins. Gabriel sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because he has a hunch that his missing friends are still inside. Once he enters, he searches the location, eventually discovering the Marionette. They quickly become friends and begin exploring the establishment together. Eventually, they stumble across Michael and William Afton. William is trying to convince Michael to work as a performer, playing the character of Bonnie. But before we can hear anything else, William spots us. He chases us through the building, and the Marionette hides us in its gift box. However, unfortunately for Gabriel, William finds him anyway and is knocked out. He wakes up inside of the Freddy Fazbear costume, watching William Afton jump around the dining room, mocking him through his last breaths. Gabriel would then go on to possess Freddy. This is easily one of the most fucked up cutscenes throughout the entire game. I'm no edgelord as some people seem to think I am, but I really enjoy when games show us the depraved things that the villains do. I and many others don't want to just hear about things happening, we want to see them as well. Of course, I don't think we all want to literally see the children getting murdered, but I think showing off the situations in the way that Tales of the Bunnyman does is incredibly interesting. Next, we get to move on to Night 5, the final main night in Tales of the Bunnyman. This night adds Fredbear, an interesting but fitting final character choice. Fredbear acts as an everything character, being able to take on the role of every animatronic besides Balloon Boy and Foxy. However, unlike most everything nights that take place in other FNAF games, Fredbear is active alongside each other animatronic, adding one more layer of stress to the nights. Again, he doesn't have any unique mechanics by himself, but this time I'm honestly okay with that, only because the other characters are still active. It's at this point I want to bring up something I should have brought up a long time ago: the character designs. From what I've seen, the community seems to be pretty split on their opinions of these character designs. A lot of people love them and think that in combination with the grungy environment, it makes them look very creepy. However, on the other hand, I've seen plenty of people who think that the designs look unprofessional and seemingly come out of a game that came out many years ago. I personally have no problems with the character designs. I think they look creepy and uncomfortable. However, I do think that the texturing on the characters does look a bit odd, but nothing that I feel takes away from the immersion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, since I'm being a little meta right now, go subscribe to my new channel, Dxtr Gray. I cover non-FNAF horror games over there, and we have a lot of fun. Anyways, moving on to the final post-night minigame where we play in the perspective of Cassandra Baldwin, or better known, Cassidy. Now, noticing that she's the only member of her friend group that hasn't gone missing, she vows to figure out what happened to them and find where they all disappeared to. Entering the back room, she finds a Fredbear plushie which, throughout the game, has been shown to be able to teleport on its own, and yet, for some reason, nobody felt like that was weird at all. This is really the only gripe I have with this story, the plushie teleporting around, and multiple people know about this, yet nobody is at all a little concerned about it. On top of that, it is literally never once elaborated on or explained why this happens. I can't even draw a conclusion because there's quite literally no reason, but let's try to put that behind us for a moment and continue. We do know that the plushie is being used by Afton to lure Cassidy into the back room. Now, pause. I know I just said there's literally no reason given as to why it's teleporting, and you may be questioning why I said that even though I just stated that William was using it to lure Cassidy. However, that still doesn't explain how it was fucking teleporting, and still doesn't explain why nobody gave that a second thought. Anyways, Cassidy is successfully lured into the back room. Scared, Cassidy runs out of the pizzeria and later returns for a Halloween party. I know that's not what that says, I'm sorry. As she explores, she's found by the bunny man who presumably knocks her out after stating, "You forgot me." She awakens to find herself inside of the Fredbear costume. William explains that originally he planned to save the Fredbear costume for Henry, but decided to use it for Cassidy instead. During their conversation, it's revealed that Vincent, the character that we've been playing as in the night sections, according to William, is a terrible night guard, which would technically leave him responsible for not noticing the children's disappearances on the camera, since every action that William had been taking was done under the constant surveillance of those cameras, including what's happening right now in front of us. This would give us a perfect reason as to why he's returning to the restaurant now to find his daughter, because he didn't watch her like he was supposed to. He never saw what happened. Afterwards, we get one last cutscene. Vincent walks up to the Fredbear animatronic and realizes it's his daughter. However, he trips and falls, which leads to him getting killed by his own daughter, and Tales of the Bunnyman abruptly comes to a close. Almost. There's actually one more thing to talk about, that being Night 6, or as this game calls it, the Epilogue. In it, after completing the final challenge, which is just a harder version of Night 5, we see the line, he finally found the suit that will become his tomb, the last lingering piece of his soul. A good song never dies. With that, we get to watch William's springlock failure and onlook as he bleeds out. We're shown that Vincent, our character, was found dead inside of Freddy Fazbear's, and several news outlets labeled him as the reason the kids were murdered. I can't lie to you guys, I'm really eager to talk about this story, since after reading into it, I actually think it's really good, and it's clear that a bunch of effort was put into it. But like I said previously, I'm just not confident in my abilities to do it for myself. I've tossed around the idea of just reading the highly detailed explanation on the wiki that was written by somebody that was far more talented than I am, but I've decided against doing that since I don't want to come off as lazy and uninspired. And as much as I hate saying this, I'd highly recommend you go to the wiki and read up on it. It's actually such an amazingly well-written story, and I think it might just be one of the best takes on the official FNAF story I've ever seen. Overall, I think Tales of the Bunnyman is an enjoyable experience. The post-night minigames are interesting, and the story is fantastic and told in a way that isn't overtly confusing like most FNAF games like to be. However, I do think that the actual gameplay mechanics are pretty lackluster. Not only does each character not really have synergy with one another, this game is also just too easy. Throughout the nights, it never really feels like the characters are becoming more aggressive, which tends to lead to boring nights where you're just waiting for the much more enjoyable minigame sections.